My death felt like, man, like it was the most anxiety, most fear I've ever felt in my life. And like it felt like all the negative, like toxicity, like shit that I've experienced, rage, like it felt like it was just rushing through my veins out of my fingers and my toes.
Mm.
And it felt like I had like this. It wasn't really a visualization. It was more like, it felt more like an intuition, but it felt like uh it felt like there was this black tar like dripping off of my heart.
Wow.
And I had my
Wow. That
had a
must have been terrifying.
it was. And I just, like you, I had all these thoughts and shit about things.
Because that's your ego trying to hold on to logic,
And
right?
the last thing that I was grasping onto was my wife and my son.
Mm.
And I was just like, I knew I was 100% certain, like, you're fucking dying, Shawn. Like this, there's no coming back. You're done. And I was just fighting like hell because I didn't want to leave my wife and my 6-month-old son in this fucked up place. And so that was like the last thing that I was holding on to. And then when I let that go, that's when the crossover happened. And when the crossover happened, I like sat back up and we're on the beach or close to the beach. We're up on a mount, like a hill, and you could see out, into the Pacific. And there were some islands out there, and I remember everything looked exactly the same. It was just more vibrant. But like every time I do psychedelics, I'm like, it's a lot of intuition going on. And, and I was really reluctant to do this because I was like, this shit's for the hippies. I'm not a hippie.
Yeah.
And I've heard hippies talk about energy and all this stuff. And, but when I opened my eyes, I saw, I just, you could intuitively feel and see this flow of energy from the ocean into the beach, up the trees, like into the grass, through me. And it was, you could see it intuitively, and you just knew that it was there. And, and, if I felt like if there would have been some negative energy out there, it would have been like a spotlight in the darkness. Like you just would have been able to identify it immediately because everything was just so positive. And then I felt the presence of Gabe, who we
Huh?
talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt that I just it was the feeling that all the trauma, everything that had happened throughout my life was supposed to happen, and that it was okay, and that none of it even fucking mattered because this is such a minuscule sliver in
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
that we're experiencing right now, and that and so it's so it made me believe again in a higher power,
Yeah.
and that it
Same here.
honestly it sent
Same
me on
here.
a journey. And I mean, now I'm a Christian, and I've had another experience after that turned me into a Christian, that like fucking slapped me in the face, like, hey, pay attention. And and it's amazing. I mean, the stuff it's and you also realize how minuscule like you
We
are,
are.
and you're okay with it, which is the ego death, right? But
Right. Well, and that's where I say, like, it's changed me in all aspects. Like, I don't get upset about things that I used to get upset about. I'm not quick to like get to conflict. I found my work has just gotten better.
yeah,
I'm a deeper movie maker. I when I was editing Painkiller, the opioid film, I had two editors, and one I had never worked with, and they they were editing while I was still in Canada filming, and then I came back, and then I had to come and work with them, every day, and I was just getting to know them, And one of them had an energy. I had just done the Toad, and they were both really good guys, but I could tell one of them had an energy, a heaviness, darkness. And I found out that he and his wife had taken their son, I think 3-year-old son, into the doctor, the ear doctor, for a procedure. This was like 3 months prior to us starting to work. And they put the son under some sort of local anesthesia, and the son died. Their kid died. And I found out that that was my editor and that had happened to him. And this came in after I'd found that, and we're working. And then I realized he had a picture of his son, a little picture kind of under his computer that I noticed for the first time. And I don't know him that well. And I started asking him about his son. I heard about this, and I'm, really sorry. And I just, want you to know that I'm aware, and if there's anything we can talk about or you want to talk about, or not, I want to be available to you for that. And we started talking. I started asking him questions about his son and what kind of life his son had had, and what kind of young man he was at that age, and what he had experienced. And we started talking. We started talking for a while, and he stopped. He said, I haven't talked about my son like this. And I realized, I don't know that I would have had this conversation prior to experiencing that medicine. And we started talking about it, and I said, well, how are you and your wife coping? He said, horribly, horribly. He said, we're going to grief counseling, but it's not working. They'd gone to some like chainsaw counseling where they go into the woods with chainsaws and just start cutting trees as a way of trying to release anger and energy. I mean, and axes, and and group therapy. And I asked him if he had thought about exploring psychedelics, and he said his wife is talking about that. And I said, well, have you heard about 5-MeO? He sat up. He said, my wife has been asking me about this. And I said, he said, what's it like? What do you think? And I thought about it. And I said, here's what I think. And I was like, forgive me if I'm overstepping. He's like, no, I want you to say it. I said, okay, because I really didn't know him that well. I said, in my mind, the way I'm thinking about you and your family, if this is your son right now in your mind, and he's right here, and wherever you look, your son, your dead son, is right there, and you can't, right, wherever you look. I said, I believe that this medicine could maybe take your son and put him here for a minute and give you, it's never gonna go away, but give you a little bit of space to maybe process something like that in a way that you're not able to. And I stand by that. And it's advice I would give to myself, to you, to anyone that, the only thing I think is that young people I don't think it's good to do for someone, much in their 20s still. I would encourage people to wait till their 30s,
Yeah.
just because I can't back that up scientifically. It's more of a hunch. But if someone came to me and they were like, 19 or 20, or, my son, I've talked to my son about this, and he's in his early 20s, and I'm very honest with him about, all of this, everything I try to be honest with him about. But I said, I don't think you should do this until you're 30.